happening too slowly but surely, we'll get an email out, is that we're going to start adjusting the course sizes to 3 feet social distancing rather than the 6 feet social distancing. This will be for fall 2021. Now, there's a distinction between what a maximum class capacity would hold versus what we would traditionally have for a course. So we're mindful of those things as well. So Pat and Lisa are going to start making those adjustments maybe today, going through next week. And then if we see we have to go back and just make some additional adjustments to ensure a course size rather than a room size, we can do that as well. So that's what's going to be happening there. Regarding the spring 2022 schedule, it's looking like we'd be more back to, if we're not doing 3 feet social distancing, we may not be doing any social distancing depending on the direction that this pandemic turns into. So right now, I think going along with what Steve had suggested, we're looking more closely at maybe having a mix of class modalities being delivered. So if we're seeing students gravitate well towards an online A&P class, then we certainly can keep some of the online paid, especially since they're maxing off very successfully for us. But we also can have some ground too for those students who prefer actually being in the classroom, and that would be across all disciplines. And we also know that there's some disciplines that function much better online, or they're designed to be online. So I think we just take it discipline by discipline. Our program coordinators know their programs very well in terms of the variety of modalities or whatever the modality is that would best work for that group. So I think that's the direction we're going in, although we are seeing more people return to ground as well.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, please follow the chat off to the right, but the next hand I see up is John Schaefer. John, you can unmute yourself. Do you have a comment or question?
Just thanks, Steve. Just wanted to quickly mention, because I was teaching 3 hybrid courses this semester, and part of that strategy allowed students the choice on many classes to either come in person or to log in online. So I was a little surprised that a large majority of students preferred to log in online, even though they had the choice, but there were certainly not students who liked to come in person. But I certainly hope that after going through this process, I realized that the advantage of the hybrid format is really pretty great. And so rather than just saying, oh, we should either have only online or only in-person classes, I would hope we actually could consider things like the hybrid format, which would allow a lot of flexibility and options for students. So just wanted to mention that.
Great, thank you, John. Yeah, again, we've got a lot that we can learn from our experience in this pandemic with all of this. Okay, other questions about enrollment? I know Kim Thomas, you're saying you can't control your hand.
My hand, I'm so sorry. My hand keeps going up and I can't I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can't lower my hand.
Okay. Well, I hope you don't get too tired.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry about that.
That's quite all right. But if you actually do have a question, just chime in. That's all.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Just as a final piece, I forgot Super Saturdays were renamed Enroll in a Day. So we are not doing Super Saturday. We're doing Enroll in a Day events.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Sam. Another thing happening this summer, just as a reminder, you've seen some emails from me about this, is that we will be welcoming on board a net total of 7 new guided pathway advisors who will be getting trained and onboarded throughout the summer. This is a game changer for Middlesex to have what will become a total of 11 people in our advising team, 10 advisors plus Neil as their office assistant. This is huge for us, and going toward a guided pathways advising approach and philosophy is going to be, make a world of difference, I think, in how we meet with our students, and it will have downstream effects on retention and completion. I see a hand up with Carolyn. Carolyn, do you have a question or a comment?
No, Steve. The same problem like Kim. I can't get my hand on.
Okay.
I'll keep trying.
Okay. All right, so why don't we move on to our reopening plans? And if you will, I do have a couple of slides just to organize my thoughts, and so you can see them. I did remember about 10 minutes into this event to hit the record button. So apologies. It means that Sarah's comments were not recorded, but so there we go. This is being recorded now, just for folks who can't join us today. So, okay. So, a few key dates for your calendar. Now, this has all been stuff that I put out in an email to the community recently. Again, some of the nuances are changing because of changes to masking requirements, facial mask requirements, and social distancing. So, as you probably have heard, the CDC is now recommending that if you are fully vaccinated, you no longer need to wear a mask. If you have not yet been vaccinated, you should wear a mask. And there are some exceptions to that, such as public transportation in places that are more crowded. Businesses can have masking mandates, so you may go to a store and you're fully vaccinated and normally don't wear a mask, but the business may ask you to do that. We are still waiting for guidance on how this will roll out to the colleges, but there is some suggestions that even the public schools will be maskless in the fall. But this kind of reminds me of a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, when things were rapidly changing, unfortunately for the worse, and we were getting new directions almost on a daily basis, and now we're going the other direction, where our guidance is loosening up on a daily basis, and let's just hope and pray that things don't turn for the worse here. So, a few dates for your calendar. After graduation, we've got Memorial Day on Monday, the 31st of May, and then on Tuesday, all of our on-campus offices that would normally be open during the summer are open 5 days a week. We've been 2 days a week, more or less, here this semester, but we're going back to 5 days a week. We will not be fully staffed at this point, and the idea here is partly out of health and public safety, but also mentally and psychologically returning to work and being with each other. I got to say, being here on campus in the current situation, it's felt like summer for the last year and a half. Not too many people around, although I know there are classes going on and all that. But on-campus offices open 5 days a week beginning June 1st. Staffing levels are at 50%, provided that we can maintain whatever social distancing guidelines are in effect as of that date. So this would mean a multi-person office, for example, enrollment services, would have no more than half the number of people in the office on any given day. Some of us work in single-person offices, so generally what this is going to mean is that your typical work schedule would be 2 days on campus and 3 days of teleworking. Now, you can work more than 2 days in a week if you choose, but again, we have to be cognizant of social distancing rules and that staffing level expectation. But generally speaking, we're still in sort of hybrid working mode for the month of June. 2 days, generally 2 days on campus and 3 days teleworking. If you need an accommodation for ADA or family medical leave, those requests continue to go through human resources. So your supervisor or even me cannot make those determinations what your accommodations are. Other requests, I'm very aware and sensitive to the fact that some of us have younger children who are not yet vaccinated, who may or may not be in school right now, but you may need to provide for summer care for younger children in particular. And some of you may still be uncomfortable because of no vaccinations yet for people under the age of 12. And so if you have requests of that nature, you're supposed to go through me, I just found out. So if you sent something to HR already, please forward it to me. My best understanding is I do have the flexibility to consider your requests as it fits into this general staffing plan. I should say that the staffing level is at 50%. This means that if your typical schedule is 2 days on campus and 3 days teleworking, if some of your colleagues are on vacation, your schedule may need to be adapted on a given week to help make sure that we have sufficient on-campus coverage. So for example, if I'm usually here Tuesdays and Thursdays, and my office mate who's here Wednesdays and Mondays is on vacation, I might need to come in 4 days that week to cover for that person. But I will leave those decisions up to the supervisors in those areas. but just a forewarning, okay? June 1st, 50%. We have the Independence Day holiday is formally observed with a day off on Monday, July 5th. So the next day, July 6th, again, we're still open 5 days a week. That hasn't changed, but our staffing levels are now 75% of what they would be normally, which means that the typical schedule is 4 days a week on campus and 1 day teleworking. And I'll let supervisors make some adjustments here and there as vacations warrant, and recognizing that it's mathematically difficult to get 75% of 5 days. It's not really 4, but it's not 3 either. So I'll let supervisors manage that. Again, ADA, FMLA requests go through Human Resources and other requests through me. And then the big day, August 2nd, everybody's back. Okay? Looking beyond that, we hope to have our summer grill and chill sometime in August. Probably not me manning a grill. We'll see how people feel about that. Maybe a box lunch event, but something to just welcome everybody back and have a little bit of social time in the month of August. I'll still wear my shorts if you want me to. Wednesday, August 25th, it's the beginning of the faculty contract semester. It's an on-campus work day for faculty. You've already been advised of that. That is intended for you to ramp up for the semester, do what you might need to do in studios and labs, upload your syllabi to Blackboard, anything else you might need to do that day. We're going to try to have an in-person convocation. I know we've gotten away from that because it's all hands on deck for registration, so I guess we'll see where we are on that date, but I think it is important just to welcome each other back in person as best as we can and as safely as we can, depending on the conditions on that day. And I would assume we have an adjunct faculty welcome back and professional development night that night too. Classes begin the next day, and everybody's back. All offices and services resume pre-COVID schedules at that point. As was already discussed, spring 22, the general expectation from the system office is we're back to the old normal, but I think as we've talked about today, it's really a new normal. And those are things we're going to be talking about, I guess, over the next couple months. A few other things you need to know. So we installed public safety sentries in each building when COVID hit, partly to make sure people were masking and all that sort of thing. But this is now going to be a new permanent feature on our campus. Not so much for the pandemic as that recedes into the background, but for public safety purposes. So this takes us back to discussions we've had on campus prior to the pandemic about general safety on campus and the need to have greater public safety presence. We're continuing that on a permanent basis now, and it's going to mean a bit of an adjustment to ins and outs of Founders Hall, but certainly the other 3 buildings there is very clearly one way in and out, on normal circumstances, which means to say everybody's got to use your photo ID to check into the building and check out of the building. It's good. That's going to be standard practice going forward. Nobody's required to show proof of vaccination, and this gets back a little bit to what you've heard from the CDC and government agencies, is it kind of puts the pressure on those folks who have not been vaccinated. The expectation is if you've not been vaccinated, you should be wearing a mask, and maybe you should get vaccinated. But if you have been vaccinated, CDC is saying that it is highly unlikely you're going to catch COVID, and it's highly unlikely you're going to transmit it. I would want to see how that plays out in the future and whether or not we're all going to need booster shots at some point, but that's way beyond my pay grade and my knowledge. But nobody's required to show proof of vaccination as of today. And again, face masks and social distancing will be whatever the policies state they are, which right now continue, face masks and 6-foot social distancing. Okay, with that, any questions about the plan as best as we can? I do see a couple things. Can I reiterate mask mandate in cubes? Stay masked at all times. Yeah, I think at the moment, first of all, if we're saying that at some point, if the guidance is you don't have to be masked, there's nothing to say that you could mask if you want to, which means a couple of things. Number one is that if you have a student or a colleague who chooses to mask, that's perfectly okay, and they should not be, made fun of, or anything like that. But I think at some point down the road, when this really does recede into the background and the pandemic is kind of truly over, it does bring up a safety issue, because we also had notices on our buildings prior to the pandemic that said, headwear and masking needs to come off for safety. So that's something, we can decide to talk about down the road. But certainly, if you're in tight quarters and you feel comfortable wearing a mask, then you should and you could. But if there is no mandate that you have to wear a mask, then we can't say that you must do that. So, as said before, as of today, still wear a mask and still maintain social distancing. I think maybe Kim Hogan, if there's any, did I not miss anything? Kim, if you recall, is our COVID coordinator, a title and responsibility she thoroughly enjoys
Oh, yes.
and relishes.
Favorite.
Anything I missed, Kim?
I like the way you put up the last slide with all the question marks, because we do get the best laid plans and then they change on a dime. As of today, everything is up in the air until the 19th, when we will probably receive a clearer executive order release. Right now, we're operating under the governor's executive order that says masks will be worn in all buildings. The CDC guidance is for masks that are okay to be not worn by those that are vaccinated, but yet we have no way to know if anyone's vaccinated or not, to know if they should have a mask on or not. So this is the ongoing, the ongoing dilemma. Clearly, though, it is the intent for us to follow any CDC guidelines that get put out. That's been our guidance all along, and we will, I feel that we'll stay steadfast to following their guidance. I also think that the preference and the desire to keep one another safe, I know, has been all across our campus from every meeting that we've had. Everybody's been really wanting to do whatever they can to keep themselves and others safe. So I'm not going to go removing the plexiglass immediately. There's no intent to do that. We will follow the guidelines. We will adjust to the guidelines, and that's the best that I can say for today. The one thing that I did want to mention, and I put it in the chat and I sent out an email today, we will be hosting a vaccination clinic next Wednesday, which is the 19th, from 1 to 7 up in Chapman Hall. It's a walk-up. Get the word out to everyone that you know, everyone in our neighborhood, friends, families, everyone can come. If there's any questions, just let me know. But basically, anybody that's around can come over and get one. It's right now slated to be the Moderna. I did ask if we could get the Pfizer, so we can allow the younger folks that are just made available to get the vaccination, that we can maybe have a greater impact in our community. But Middletown itself has done a great job in really deploying and maximizing vaccinations. We're really heavily vaccinated here in Middletown. Meriden is not as much, and I'm trying to get a clinic over in Meriden as well. I was hoping it was going to be the 13th, but it didn't happen. We can still try to do something over the summer and for our Meriden community. I'll keep on that. Yes, it is 1 to 7 p.m. Anything? And I'm just any questions in the chat. Let me just check real quick. Yeah, I like the idea of what you said, the flu, etc. We've had a lot less illnesses around the campus. Even though we weren't there as much, but even those that were there reported that they were not getting called as much. Right now we have allergy season, and I wish it would do more for allergy season. It doesn't seem to be as effective for allergy season, but I wish it was. There's some questions about getting IDs. The CICC is still a place to get IDs. It is manned Monday through Friday. Fridays with a half a day, but it will be all summer long, manned Monday through Friday. As far as any nighttime hours, I don't have anything for the evenings scheduled because we just don't have a lot of traffic. But if someone needs to make an appointment because they can only come in the evening, let me or Lillian know and we'll accommodate that.
I think a quick comment about the plexiglass partitions. I think, those can stay as long as you want them. And I think we talked about, again, that actually reduces transmission of the flu, the cold, whatever else. And it may even give a semblance of physical security as well. In fact, not just a semblance of, but actual physical security if you're, close to somebody.
So I'll be sure to put out updates, as we go along. I do see Judy Wallace has her hand up. I don't know if that's a new hand or an old hand.
It's a new hand. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I always have to comment, but I was going to say the same thing, Steve, with the plexiglass. We've already made that investment. It's already in place. I don't see the downside of having that continue. I think people are just seeing that in public spaces, and I think it just adds a level of security, both for, communicable disease, and organisms, as well as you said, maybe another barrier for other things. So I would ask and advocate to have those continue unless there's a strong reason why they shouldn't. And, the other thing is we have to follow state, and CDC guidelines, et cetera. But I would caution of making the assumption that everyone who has a mask off has been vaccinated. People do what they do. And I think that would be incorrect. People do what you inspect, not what you expect. And people take all kinds of stands on that. And so just a word of caution of just assuming that that's the case. Although I know we have to follow whatever the mandates are. That assumption, I think, could be problematic.
Sure. The one last thing I'll add to everyone is we are maintaining the cleaning protocols as well. We've been doing that all along, and we will continue to maintain that. So you will still see porter service around the campus throughout the summer and back. It'll lower off a little bit in the summer because we don't have as much usage. So I'm going to cut back from 2 to 1 in the summer and go back to 2 in the fall. So you will still see porter service during the day.
I think it goes without saying, good hygiene is good hygiene, still wash your hands, use the sanitizers. We got plenty of PPE, and we'll continue to have that in the future. So, again, this pandemic has helped reset our own personal standards and things that we took for granted, just, again, hygiene being one of them. So I think, I would agree with Arlen. Thank you very much, Kim Hogan, for taking all this on and taking bazillions of phone calls and for coordinating this on our behalf. So thank you very much, Kim.
Thank you, everyone. No problem.
Okay. A couple things that catch up a little bit in the chat. I mean, we're going to save the chat, so if there's some specific things to follow up on, thank you very much for using it. It's sometimes a little hard to keep up on in live time, but a couple of things that sort of touch on budget. I talked to Kim. I wasn't sure how much time we'd have here, so we don't have time to go into a full budget discussion. But I think just to answer one question about the Guided Pathway Advisors, that's part of a system initiative. But the nature of our budget is changing as the college marches to become a campus of a single college, and we'd be happy to spend a lot more time talking about how that works. We're still learning it. So this is funding from the system office, but it comes to us and we pay the system office back. There is also significant money coming to the college system through emergency relief funding from the federal government to the tune of about $120 million for the 12 colleges. A lot of it, by law, is going to students in the form of refunds or grants directly to students. This was also done last year as part of the CARES Act. And a significant amount of money is going to be basically covering our deficits based on the fact that our enrollment has declined 15% during the COVID pandemic. So, and there's also some funding that will be addressing our accounts receivable. In other words, students who owe the college balances, those balances will be wiped out on their behalf, which could mean a real big opportunity to reach out to these students and say, hey, remember you owed us $300? You don't owe us the money anymore. Let's get you registered for the fall semester.
We want to let that happen before we announce it.
Yeah, of course.
So let's just make sure that things are going forward. We'll let you know when you can announce that to your students. It should be soon. But right now, all of this is just kind of being put out and confirmed, okay?
That's right. So, and I say that just to say 120 million is real money, but a lot of it's already been spent. and some of it will be spent on initiatives that will harden our IT infrastructure, that will go to some of our classrooms, that will specifically go to hands-on programming, particularly in workforce development. So we are looking at converting a classroom on campus to a second allied health lab, because there are millions of dollars of training funds out there to support students who need to do job retraining in this new economy. So we need to take advantage of that. And we are looking at some other campus improvements. For example, to keep distancing, if you've been to campus, you've seen how Enrollment Services now is using the double doors that open up to the student lounge as their transaction window without students coming into the office. You know, we're looking at making that a permanent change for lots of reasons. But, you know, this is where we would get the money to pay for some of this stuff. Okay. All right. And before we get into looking ahead a little bit, I want to kind of look back at this year and give some acknowledgments to people. And some of these acknowledgments, I think, have slipped a little bit under the radar, and if that's my fault, I apologize. Sometimes it's really hard when your entire work life is doing email and things in writing. Sometimes things slip between the cracks. So if you pardon me for that, let me catch up with some acknowledgments, and I don't want to go through every possible acknowledgement. So again, if I miss something, I apologize for that. But let me at least acknowledge those folks who have been nominated by you, who will be receiving merit awards through the Congress Collective Bargaining Unit. And those folks who are getting merit awards are Akia Brown-Welch, Jill Flanagan, Evelyn Garcia, Angelo Glaviano, Jennifer Hernandez, Lisa Knapp-Wilson, Sarah Perez, Ashley Rathel, Betty Reedinger, Christine Ruggiero, and Hunter Taché. Congratulations, our colleagues, on your merit awards through the Congress for Merit Award Program. And also, as part of that program, there's something called the Educational Excellence and Distinguished Service Award, which is available for one recipient in the Congress Union at the colleges. And this is a merit award plus the opportunity to spend a $5,000 grant on a significant college project. And the person that was nominated and has been awarded the Educational Excellence and Distinguished Service Award this year is Professor Donna Hilton. Congratulations, Donna. Another distinction that may have gone a little bit under the radar is the Board of Regents Faculty Awards, which were released about a month ago. And based on nominations from our campus, the recipient of this year's Board of Regents Teaching Award for Middlesex Community College is Dr. Patrick Bryan. So congratulations to Patrick. We've heard before, thanks to Sarah's summary of our commencement ceremonies, that we are awarding emeritus status to Judy Miskulski and Pam Frost for their many years of service to Middlesex Community College and to the state system. And so congratulations to Judy and Pam. And please, if you see them or have a moment to send them a note, that this is a significant milestone in their careers, and we're happy to acknowledge their emeritus status at this point. And finally, two other people who will be leaving the college shortly. I want to acknowledge, since we're all together here, I see almost 100 of us online. First is someone who really kind of exemplifies the role of the pinch hitter. And I know my friend Steve Kay enjoys baseball and sports analogies. And this is a person who kind of came into the game, was thought that maybe they weren't even going to be called into the game, but was given kind of the green light toward the end of the game to kind of come in, pinch hit, and do yeoman's work for Middlesex Community College over the past year as our interim Associate Dean of Workforce Development and Continuing Education. And Marge Valentin will be with us through the end of June while we continue our search for a Director of Non-Credit Programs. But Marge, I really want to thank you for stepping in, for keeping that department going, for expanding out some of our services with the training funds that have come our way, and for just being a great partner on our cabinet team. So help me thank Marge Valentin for being our Associate Dean.
Thank you. I also want to thank Evelyn Garcia because I couldn't have done it without her. So
Definitely.
thank you to Evelyn for making that switch temporarily.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she deserved every penny of that merit. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you, Marge. And thank you, Evelyn, too. I was going to thank you as well. And finally, a person who has been with us for almost 2 years, and I distinctly remember her interview with the campus and the presentation that she made about how she would reflect on what this college was looking for in its next Dean of Academic and Student Affairs. And a couple things I distinctly remember from her presentation to the college community. First of all is that she totally got and was all in on the one team approach that we were trying to work on at this college. Secondly, she really understood that to move forward, we really need to de-siloize, let's face it, a relatively small college where we had distinct walls between particularly the student affairs side and the academic affairs side. And, kind of responding to what the community needed for us to do and my vision for how we needed to break down those walls after having 2 separate deans in those 2 areas for a number of years. She brought with her the faculty sensibility, having been a faculty member in the sciences for many years and having that experience behind her belt and having supervised faculty as a division director, and with her community connections, having worked on a special assignment with the UConn Hartford branch, but also in her work in the greater community as well. She's brought a steeliness and fierce commitment to our college and our students. She has mentored many of you and has mentored me in many ways. And I am excited for the new opportunity in her life, but am completely saddened to be losing Dr. Sherelle Mathis to a new position as Vice President of Academic and Student Affairs at Holyoke Community College. Sherelle, I know we all wish you well. We will miss you dearly, and we want to thank you for your 2 years with Middlesex Community College. You've made this a better place because of your time with us. Thank you, Sherelle.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Steve. I cannot repeat the emotional breakdown that occurred in PCDC meeting. But just thank you. I'm forever grateful for the opportunity that you, Middlesex, provided to me to serve as Dean of Academic and Student Affairs. And for me, that has always been the key word is serve. And it was to serve not only the students, but it was to serve faculty, it was to serve staff, and it was to serve as your right hand. Um, with you being as CEO, I learned a lot from you. I learned a lot of patience and calmness that will round me out. Um, I'm thankful for your mentorship. And most importantly, I would say the best surprise is your friendship and your support. So for me, this isn't goodbye. Um, I'm a firm believer that life crosses paths at different points in our lives. I've formed some amazing relationships that have turned into friendships with many people, and I fully hope and expect that they continue as I, open this next chapter. But really wanted to just thank the Middlesex community for, your trust and your support of me. And really, Steve, your friendship and your guidance and your mentorship has been um, more impactful than I think you even know and realize. So thank you.
Thank you, Sherelle. And now the really and finally, I keep saying and finally, but this is the and finally one. One more person who will be leaving us very soon. This is a person who knows where all the bodies are buried. In a very stealth way, because she's very quiet. But while she may be small in physical stature, she is huge in the stature of our hearts and our minds and all the help she has given to all of our faculty and to this college for, I think, 30-something years, and also with the state of Connecticut. And we do wish a fond farewell, like I said, not goodbye, but a farewell for the moment as Patricia Inferrera retires shortly. So many thanks to Patricia for her service. Okay, with about 5 minutes to go, I wanted to just put something else on screen that gets us to look ahead a little bit, okay? So let me share my PowerPoint one more time before we adjourn. Okay, so a few things to look forward to, lessons learned from our pandemic and how we plan ahead. So as announced, we have an academic affairs suite in Wheaton Hall. So this is where Donna, Linda, Sarah, and Lisa will be housed. So on the faculty, you go to one place now. It's in Wheaton Hall upstairs. One thing we've learned from this pandemic is we're reducing papers. As I said earlier, faculty, if you come in on your first workday, you're going to be uploading syllabi to Blackboard and not making hundreds of copies of printed syllabi. I mean, certainly if a student requests a printed syllabus and they're unable to do it somehow on their own, by all means, make copies for them. But we are reducing paper. We have reduced paper drastically, and this includes all of our forms, all of our business forms, for better or worse, our timesheets, but all of our academic materials as well. So whenever possible, use Blackboard or as a repository for your academic information for your students. We've learned a lot about online technology, high-flex, Celeron, hybrid, and teleworking. And I'll just say, I'm on record as supporting teleworking, but I do not make that policy, nor do I negotiate with the unions and how this works. So, forgive me if, or forgive your cabinet team, if we have to go by the rules that are put in front of us. I think we've learned a lot about teleworking, and I dare say that we are as, if not more, productive with some teleworking options available to us, and I hope that that could be figured out going forward. Again, looking at our opportunities both online and in Meriden as we bring things back into Meriden at Platt. We are looked at as really the beacon of light for higher education in the city of Meriden, and our work with Meriden on the Gear Up project and by having our campus at Platt is a great opportunity for us to make a difference in the lives of the students in that community. And the fact that we have worked closely in the past with our current U.S. Secretary of Education certainly can help us. We'll be talking over the next forever about what's now being called the merger of the colleges, not the consolidation. So I know there was some talk at the Executive Council about having some workshops and sessions to talk about what it's going to mean to move from being a college to a campus and all that goes with that. So we'll be kind of rolling that out through some workshops in the fall and in the spring. Our NETCHI self-study continues, so sort of paradoxically, we're going to become a campus, yet we're still accredited as a standalone Middlesex community college, and our self-study forges ahead, and we'll be doing monthly town halls based on each of the standards and get that work going such that we can submit a draft of our self-study next April. And finally, is retirement in your future? I bring this up, and I'll stop sharing. I bring this up simply to say that, as you know, being state employees, there are some significant changes happening to retirement, pension, and health benefits that take effect if you retire on or after July 1st, 2022. Now, I'm not asking people to tell me anything yet, but I would imagine many people are considering personally how this is going to affect their future, and I think that that's a conversation you need to have with your families and with the retirement counselors and to figure that out for yourselves, because there are some significant changes. So I bring this topic up simply to say that any of you who have participated or are participating on a search committee now, can you imagine what this is going to be like when thousands of people say they want to retire by next July? I wish I could say I'd be retiring with you and I don't have to worry about it, but I'll be here. So so in all seriousness, this has been a topic of discussion with the CEOs, knowing that a significant number of our employees are considering retiring and what that might look like for refill. So what many of you have talked to me informally as, and I appreciate that. As the CEOs, we were given, I guess, the leeway to say that if we have some sense of retirements, we can actually start searches because they can always be stopped or rescinded if a person rescinds their retirement. So for example, let's just say I told my boss, okay, I'm thinking of retiring next July 1st. Nothing set in stone yet, but I'm really looking at this hard and seriously. My boss could then start a search. We could, put an ad out. Look, we're searching for a new CEO, a new professor, a new director of XYZ. But then as the date gets a little closer and I rescind my, or I change my mind and decide not to retire, then we just cancel the search. So I'm asking you, if you do have some idea that you may want to retire by next July, if I can have some indication that, on an email, dear Steve, I am exploring the possibility, without committing to it, that I may be thinking of retiring by July 1st. If we can get ahead of some of the hiring so that the college doesn't completely fall apart because of so many possible retirements, I just want to get ahead of this because the HR system, as it's now constituted, is challenging. So I'm just going to put that out there. So I thank you for hearing that. Are there any questions or anything else about what we've talked about today, the reopening plan, or in particular, anything looking ahead?
Steve, concerning your last comment, the union folks, and it may be what makes a determination for some people or not as to whether or not they opt to retire. One can't get an appointment with them until you kind of hand in that paperwork and make that commitment. And for some of my colleagues, that may be difficult. It's like that chicken egg. I don't know if I want to go until I kind of know what the picture looks like. And yes, I understand they're having those kind of open meetings that are very general, kind of vanilla questions. Perhaps could we work on seeing if they might even be willing to commit a day or two, or however many of us might be, those old folk kind of considering this, right? For them to be willing to set aside some time so that we would be able to give you better information.
Yeah, I can see what I can do, and I realize I'm trying not to step over a line here because I can't require you to do anything, and I really can't even talk to you or to even put pressure or anything like that. So hopefully you all understand that. I'm just simply trying to prepare ahead for an avalanche here. So so with that in mind, yeah, we'll see what we can do to have somebody come to campus. I know there have been group sessions, like you said. I got to assume the retirement department's going to be overwhelmed by all this too. And hey, who knows? Maybe expecting this, anything can happen, up to and including having some adjustment to deadlines and things like that if the retirement division is completely overwhelmed. So, but thank you for that.
Steve, if I might add one more thing.
Yep.
As you know, we organized 4 workshops for retirement lately. And answering to Emily's question, those workshops were designed to be general or vanilla because the individual situation is incredibly different from person to person. So they can't really organize a workshop for everybody and being able to explain who's going to get what based on their professional history. That's why they were kind enough to come and presenting all that they could share with everybody. But then they were strongly advising to schedule meetings with them. That is when you actually get to speak about your individual situation with the part-timing, part-timing, state, private, and so on. And Carla did say from the Carla Desjardins from the central office said they are overwhelmed, as he was correctly saying, by the number of requests they're receiving. And I don't think their office has been receiving any additional manpower in terms of handling the surge of requests. So I hope that Steve, you're going to be able to succeed in finding somebody to come over and individually talk to people. But just giving you a heads up that right now their offices are swamped. Different story with Prudential though. Prudential, for those of you guys have retirement plans, Prudential, that their offices are, there are many, and you can quickly get to talk to somebody pretty much within a day or two. So, but for the state, sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Angelo. I see a couple hands raised. Michael Amazu. Michael?
No, I didn't raise my hand. I tried to click it. Yeah, I lower it.
Okay.
It was a mistake from them.
No, it's okay. People are,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hunter, is the same true for you, or do you have a question? Oh, you muted, Hunter.
Oh.
There you go.
Hi, okay, so I have a question. Surprisingly enough, it is not about retiring. I was wondering if there are any like moving forward like agreements coming down from like any of the state schools about like the validity of online labs out of COVID.
That's a great question. Sherelle, have you heard anything at the dean's level?
So unlike before, where we were able to receive a formal agreement between the CSUs and the community colleges, we didn't get a formal agreement. However, the provosts, the academic provosts at the CSUs are under the thinking that they'll still transfer. We tried to inform them that that's their understanding, but below them, that doesn't always translate well. So they said to just inform them of any case where a student runs into a barrier where that class isn't transferred in. And that's the extent of it. UConn was still going back and forth and was working on that, but she just didn't get, I think, a latest response more than they were working on it. But students should not have an issue with taking lab or hybrid science, math classes here and transferring them to the CSUs.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we're about 7 minutes over time, and I do have a hard stop, as I'm sure some of you do too. So I want to thank you all. This is our last all-college meeting of the academic year. So good to see so many people on board, about 100 of us, and maybe cross your fingers this is the last time that all of us are all together in little squares, although I do think in the future having, what are we calling them now, high flex meetings where some people are online and some people are in person can work. We have some experience, something to learn from and move forward. So I hope to see more and more of you over the summer as you come back, and definitely in the fall, and have a great summer. We'll see you at graduation too. Thanks so much.